who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, August the 6th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Trost. And opening the front page, Spokane wildfires feel like a bad dream. Survivors tell their stories of shock, sadness, and loss. Christopher Kahn of USA Today writes, Jason Dalton looked forward to bringing his children back to his childhood home in Spokane, Washington, where they would enjoy the backyard and swimming pool that he loved growing up. Those days were over. August 1st, Dalton's childhood home was among an estimated 700 structures razed to the ground by several wildfires that swept across the Spokane area in a matter of hours. I'm still in shock, Dalton, age 35, told USA Today. I'm sad for my mom. She lost everything. As of August the 4th, 3 large wildfires consumed more than 16 square miles and forced more than 65,000 people to flee their homes, according to officials. Police arrested a 37-year-old man accused of igniting the Old Trails fire, the largest of the 3 blazes. Thousands of firefighting personnel have struggled to gain control of the wildfires, which erupted as the Spokane area faced unusually high temperatures, persistent drought conditions, and strong winds. All 3 wildfires were 0% contained as of August the 4th. That's according to the National Interagency Fire Center. The fires have torn across a number of middle and working class communities in and around Spokane, the second largest city in Washington. Residents who spoke with USA Today described their frenzied escape from the wildfires and the devastation left in their wake. Nicholas Shover, 26, said he was speaking with a technician about his air conditioning on August the 1st when he saw the orange glow of flames and smoke in the distance. He didn't panic, at least not immediately. The fire was still well on the other side of the Spokane River. It did not take long for danger to draw near. As the winds picked up and flames made their way up the hillside toward Shover's house, he packed up his car and yelled at his neighbors to get moving. Soon, the idyllic neighborhood of Indian Trail was covered with smoke as roads filled with evacuees. Shover, his wife Claire, and their 4-month-old daughter spent the night at a friend's house. There they watched videos online of what looked apparently to be their street completely consumed in flames. The next day, Shover went back and confirmed nothing was left of their home. It feels like a bad dream, said Claire Shover, age 27. I think we're still a bit numb. Dalton said he called his mother as soon as he heard about the fires on August the 1st. She told him that she'd been running errands and that her neighborhood had been closed off by roadblocks. Dalton's other relatives, including his brother and several cousins, had evacuated the house after receiving emergency alerts. When they eventually returned, they found the house completely destroyed. The only thing left standing was a rock wall that was the centerpiece of their living room. It was surreal, said Dalton's brother, Matthew Elizondo, who also grew up in the house. The whole street was just rubble. Seeing that was probably the most horrible moment of my life. Jordan Wertman, freelance photographer, was editing videos in his basement when he heard cars screeching down the road in Westgate, a residential neighborhood in North Spokane. When he looked out the window, the sky was dark with smoke, and he saw neighbors hurriedly packing their cars. Wortman followed suit and called his relatives to let them know the house was in danger and that he was leaving. On his way out, he grabbed one of his mother's prized possessions, a coffee mug in the shape of a ski boot, which he's had for decades. It's one of her favorite things in the world, Wortman said. Nicholas Shover said he regrets not packing his daughter's quilt, which was woven from his grandfather's favorite cardigan sweater. His wife said she wished she'd packed some letters written by her grandfather and items from her nursery that she was saving for her own daughter. I really just needed 5 minutes to get a few things, but I couldn't get anything, she said through tears. It's all burnt to the ground. More than half a dozen residents whose homes were destroyed said they received prompt emergency notifications that gave them enough time to flee safely. In the days ahead of August the 1st, local officials warned people to monitor potential evacuation warnings because of high winds, which threatened to quickly spread wildland fires. A resident said, compounding the threat were persistent drought conditions and unusually warm temperatures, gripping much of the Pacific Northwest. Officials said the dangerous mix made for a historic weather event that fueled the explosive growth of the wildfires. No deaths or injuries have been reported as of August 1st, but officials said that could change as fire activity subsides and search crews gain access to devastated areas that remain inaccessible. Benjamin Kossel, spokesperson for the California Interagency Incident Management Team 7, said an unspecified number of people remain missing after the fires spread from forested areas into neighborhoods and commercial districts. Wortman said he and his family briefly evacuated their home last year for a wildfire, but noted that the blaze was put out quickly. We kind of thought that was going to happen this time too, he said. We didn't get lucky this time. In the days since the fires destroyed their homes, Spokane residents said they're trying to plan what to do next. Many of them are balancing work and caring for their children while searching for hotels and rental properties. Elizondo said he and his mother and his 2 children are going to move into an apartment until they can rebuild their home. He said a rental office in Spokane was packed with other evacuees when his mother went to sign a lease on an apartment. Wortman said he and his wife, who was due to give birth to their first child in December, plan to stay with relatives until they can find a rental property. We're trying to stay positive about all this, he said. The Shover said they don't know what they're going to do next. They had just finished major renovations on their house before the fires. It was the first they'd ever purchased, and one they planned to raise their infant daughter in. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, Claire Shover said, but we're just really happy that we're safe and we have each other.
Sandwich generation millennials pay the price. Average age of those caring for kids, parents, is now 34, causing sudden financial strain. From Medora Lee of USA Today, the sandwich generation is getting younger, imperiling Americans' retirements, analysts said. Sandwich caregivers, or those simultaneously taking care of aging parents and children, took on their dual responsibilities at 34 years old on average, according to Care.com's 2026 Sandwich Generation Report. That's younger than the typical age of 40s or 50s for the sandwich generation, and one of the most stunning takeaways of the survey, said the online marketplace connecting families with caregivers. Of the 1,000 Americans surveyed, 69% said their dual responsibilities began earlier in life than they expected, and 80% said the transition happened suddenly, leaving little time to prepare financially. Not only do these caregivers end up feeling unprepared to take on the dual role, but balancing the costs of child care and senior care simultaneously is reshaping nearly every one of their financial decisions. The impact falls disproportionately on women, who have left the workforce in droves, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. Sandwiched caregivers cut hours, decline promotions, and sometimes leave their organizations entirely, said Andy Challenger, a chief revenue officer and workplace expert at the outplacement firm. Adult children lose about $12,300 annually in income and out-of-pocket costs alone. Medical alert company Bay Alarm Medical Survey of 507 Americans shows. Once unpaid care hours are factored in, the cost of caregiving exceeds $25,000 a year. The average age of sandwich caregivers moving down is likely because of shifting societal trends, said Jill McNamara, Vice President of Strategic Growth at Care.com. People are having kids later in life, which means by the time they have a toddler or a kindergartner at home, their own parents are that much older too. Often right in the window where they start needing real support themselves, she said. So you have young kids who need you and aging parents who need you, landing in the exact same years, instead of spread out the way it might have been for previous generations. Meanwhile, the aging parents Americans are helping care for are frequently the same people providing child care for their grandkids, Challenger said. According to research from American Association of Retired Persons, nearly 70% of grandparents provide some level of care for their grandchildren, averaging more than 500 hours annually, or the equivalent of 12 and a half weeks of full-time work. Of that group, 15% provide daily care or almost daily. When a grandparent has a health event, it isn't one crisis, it quickly becomes two, according to Challenger. Is this particularly bad? The timing couldn't be worse, experts said. Americans are embarking on prime earning years at this age, and saving early gives invested money the most time to grow, they said. Time allows compound growth, which is when you earn interest on the money you saved. 7 of 10 adult child caregivers have taken a hit to their job or career to keep caring, and nearly 1 in 3 have rated or scaled back their own retirement savings. Bay Alarm Medical said. 6 of 10 said they expect these years of dual caregiving will affect their retirement, with nearly 20% believing they may never be able to fully retire, according to the survey. But that may be the wrong approach, experts said. Some experts said. Stabilize your own finances first, said Miklos Ringbauer, a certified public accountant and founder of Miklos CPA Inc. It's like putting on your oxygen mask first on an airplane before you help others. The least you should do for yourself is contribute enough to a company 401k, plan to get the employer match, and then turn to taking care of others, advisors have said. Can Americans survive this? Planning to avoid a crisis is key, according to McNamara. Sandwich caregivers want to have the hard conversations with their aging parents before it's a crisis, not during it. A major area of focus should be plans for long-term care, experts said. Approximately 70% of people turning age 65 are expected to need some form of long-term care, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Long-term care encompasses a wide range of care, from assistance with daily tasks to more complex medical care, either at home, in a facility setting like a nursing home, or in a community-based setting like an assisted living facility. If long-term care insurance is too expensive, or you're afraid of the use it or lose it nature of the money invested in it, consider a hybrid life insurance policy, said Rob Burnett, an investment advisor, representative, and professional tax preparer at Outlook Financial Center. These fixed cost policies ensure a payout either as care benefits or a death benefit to beneficiaries, so no money is left on the table if you end up lucky and never need care, he said. This helps keep caregivers from having to shell out their own money. Government programs such as Medicaid or ones through the Veterans Affairs also are an option, said Joseph Fressard, attorney at Samasco Law. Workplace help is also wanted, McNamara said. Caregivers want workplaces to stop treating this like it's rare, because it's really not. It's becoming the norm, she said. I think more than anything, they just want to stop feeling like they have to hide it. Companies need to realize this is a workforce issue, not a personal issue. according to Challenger. When caregivers must leave or cut their hours, that's talent walking out the door, and it's often the experienced, mid-career talent you spent years developing. Flexibility is the single most important thing employers can offer to caregivers, she said. A doctor's appointment for an aging parent doesn't respect a 9-to-5 calendar. Neither does a sick kindergartner. If you happen to be one of those who unexpectedly fall into sandwich caregiving in an emergency situation, don't panic. You don't have to figure this out alone, and you don't have to have it all figured out before you ask for help, according to McNamara. That's actually one of the biggest things our data showed us. 84% of caregivers told us they wish they would have asked sooner. So if you're thinking, that's me and I have no idea where to start, that's normal, and there is somewhere to start. Care.com has a senior care advisor service where sandwich caregivers can talk to a master's level social worker to build a plan, and a social channel called where's the sandwich where's the sandwich Jen that people can tap for everyday questions, help, or encouragement. The Family Caregiver Alliance and AARP also offer practical guides for people caring for aging parents, and Elder Care Locator is a federal program that can connect people to local services in their area. You don't have to wait until you're drowning to reach out for help, according to McNamara.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:16. The Dems divide only gets deeper. El Sayed's Michigan win leaves direction unsettled. Susan Page, the Washington bureau chief for USA Today, writes, "The divide between Michigan Democrats was so tight that it took another dawn to declare the winner. The morning after the August 4th primary, leftist insurgent Abdul El Sayed finally claimed the Democratic nomination in the state's crucial Senate race, riding a tide of younger and disenchanted voters to defeat establishment choice Haley Stevens. But the closeness of the contest against the centrist Congresswoman, more competitive than statewide polls had predicted, did more to underscore than to settle the fierce debate about the direction of the party and its prospects in come November. As votes were being counted, El Sayed urged his supporters to begin to mend fences in an effort to defeat Republican Mike Rogers this coming November. However much we might disagree with our Democratic opponent, there is so much more that unites us than divides us," he said. Uniting the party may not be easy, though. His victory, after an onslaught of opposition spending by outside groups, was a rejection not only of Stevens, but also of the power brokers who had lined up behind her, from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Instead, Michigan Democrats voted narrowly to shake things up. Just 3 months before Election Day, Michigan's contest stood as the most significant test to date of whether the Democratic prescription for the midterms this fall and the presidential election in 2028 should focus more on appealing to swing voters in the middle or on energizing new voters on the left. For better or worse, the Republican Party has a defining leader in President Trump at a time Democrats are facing an identity crisis in full public view. In a CNN SSRS poll in July, nearly 6 out of 10 Democrats and voters who lean Democratic said the party needed major changes or even complete reform. Democrats remain reasonably confident of taking control of the House of Representatives and hopefully of challenging Republicans for the Senate this coming November. They are counting on Trump's dismal approval ratings to help give them a platform for power in Washington after 2 years on the sidelines. But that optimism is being tempered by concerns over message and money. Michigan's race is part of that nervousness. To win control of the Senate, a high bar, Democrats must flip 4 Republican-held seats while holding all of their own. Some strategists worry that keeping the seat now held by retiring Senator Gary Peters just got harder. So let's look at the numbers. This year's primaries have been a season in the sun for the left. But it's one thing for Democratic office holders to be uprooted by leftist candidates in New York City and a Denver-centered congressional district. In those deep blue precincts, newcomers affiliated with the Democratic Socialists of America seized nominations from the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and a 15-term veteran of Congress. Progressive contenders also have won nominations over an incumbent congressman in New York and a 2-term governor in Maine. In Michigan, the political landscape is purple, a quintessential swing state that Democrat Barack Obama carried in 2008 and 12. Trump won it in 2016, Democrat Joe Biden won it in 2020, and Trump regained it in 2024. Now, even so, El Sayed waged an unapologetically liberal campaign that blasted Democratic leaders as too timid for the times, embraced Medicare for all and other progressive programs, and denounced Israel's war in Gaza as a genocide. His lead of roughly 15,000 votes among more than 1.5 million cast was closer than the double-digit percentage edge several recent statewide surveys had found, and his core support was different from the party's classic coalition. El Sayed gained momentum by drawing the most liberal voters and white voters with college degrees. He led in Dearborn and other Arab American neighborhoods in the Detroit suburbs, and he swamped Stevens among younger voters and in college towns like Ann Arbor and East Lansing. In contrast, Stevens drew her strongest support from black voters in Detroit and from seniors. She did well in working-class communities in the suburbs, and she carried many of the more conservative and predominantly white rural counties. The Democratic coalition is undergoing a pretty significant transformation in real time. Joel Payne, Democratic strategist who had worked in the Senate and presidential campaigns, told USA Today, with the party's brand compromised among disenchanted voters, our establishment leaders are going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable allies with newer voices. It's a tightrope, he said. There is just as much risk in this moment to alienating the grassroots base of the Democratic Party as there is in alienating those in the middle. Now, Stevens, a 4-term congresswoman born in the Detroit suburb of Rochester Hills in 1983, is a political scrapper with a Michigander accent that went viral during the campaign. El Sayed, who was born in Rochester Hills in 1984, the son of Egyptian immigrants, is a former public health official who has amassed a sizable online following and the support of top progressives such as Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If he wins in November, he would be the first Muslim member of the Senate. El Sayed accused Stevens of being in the pocket of AIPAC and other pro-Israel outside groups that contributed millions to her campaign. Stevens depicted El Sayed as an elitist and celebrity wannabe who blames American Jews for all his problems. Now, after that bruising primary campaign, the task of getting her supporters to back him is likely to be daunting. Republicans have already united behind Rogers, former congressman who ran unopposed in the GOP primary. He has signaled his eagerness to to take on El Sayed. If he wins, I think we're in good shape, Rogers said in a private phone call with supporters in July, reported by CNN. I mean, I think he's so radical. Later, in an interview with Fox News, he mocked the Democrat Abdul. He has his own special sauce of crazy, he said. The latest public poll released the day before the election by Epic Mirror showed Rogers leading El Sayed by 3 percentage points, but trailing Stevens by 2 in a general election matchup. He came within a hairbreadth of winning the state's other Senate seat in 2024, losing by less than half a percentage point to Democratic Elissa Slotkin. Then, Democrats faced headwinds in the 2024 campaign, which featured a messy switch at the top of the ticket after President Biden withdrew under fire. Now, the headwinds are hampering the GOP, led by a president with sagging approval ratings amid economic angst and an unpopular war in Iran. But the GOP's significant financial advantage in the fall continues to widen as the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, pledged that his super PAC would spend at least $100 million on the midterms. Trump's own super PAC, MAGA Incorporated, reports it has $400 million in the bank. That's as much as the Democratic and Republican Party organizations combined. Republicans hope for, and some Democrats fear, repercussions from the rise of candidates on the left, especially those affiliated with the Democratic Socialists of America. The DSA's national platform proposes drafting a new constitution and abolishing the Senate, as well as replacing capitalism with a system where ordinary people have a real voice in the workplace, neighborhoods, and societies. Trump says the Democratic Party has been taken over by hardcore, godless communists, though only a handful of Democratic candidates are members of the DSA, and they don't identify as communists. For his part, El Sayed says he's a capitalist, not a socialist. Now the battle to define the Democratic Party heads from Michigan to the swing state next door. In Wisconsin, State Representative Francesca Hong, a chef and restaurant owner who is a member of the DSA, is seeking the gubernatorial nomination in the state's August 11 primary. Increasingly frantic efforts by centrist Democrats to oppose her have stumbled. The early frontrunner pulled out of the race after campaign finance irregularities, and another dropped out amid allegations of sexual misconduct. Hong led the field at 38% in a Marquette University Law School poll late July, a double-digit edge over the other candidates. 1/3 of Democrats, however, are still undecided. So, on to Wisconsin.
Cases of parasite expand to 47 states. From the CDC, 10,468 cyclospora infections since May the 1st. From Mary Walrath Holdridge of USA Today. Cases of cycloporosias, a parasitic infection known for causing explosive diarrhea, have now reached 47 states as the illness reached unprecedented numbers. There have been 10,468 laboratory-confirmed cases of cyclospora infections since May the 1st, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in its weekly update on August the 4th. The new numbers represent an increase of more than 3,700 since the CDC's last report on July the 28th. Cases have now been recorded in 47 states, up from 45 last week. At least 12,255 additional cases have not yet been confirmed by laboratories, according to the CDC. There have been 517 hospitalizations and 2 deaths, the agency said. Federal health authorities are still investigating the sources of what they believe to be multiple separate outbreaks, the largest of which is centered in Michigan. The state reported more than 11,000 cases of cyclospora porosius, and the first 2 deaths associated with the outbreak on August the 4th. The figures differed from the CDC's because they have not yet been officially confirmed or reported back to the federal agency for inclusion in its count. This latest outbreak has been linked to iceberg lettuce grown by produce giant Taylor Farms in central Mexico, prompting the company to initiate a recall on July the 17th. Only 3 states, Delaware, Hawaii, and Montana, have been spared thus far from the outbreaks. Michigan and Ohio remain the 2 states hit the hardest, and Washington, D.C. has also reported a handful of cases.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30.
Continuing, the CDC reports only lab-confirmed cases that occurred on or after May the 1st in people who did not travel internationally within 14 days of the onset of illness. Its numbers often lag behind those cited by state health officials because of tracking, verification, and reporting processes. There's typically a 6-week reporting lag between an illness and the case being reported to the CDC. Now, what is cycloporosius and what are the symptoms? Cycloporosius is a parasitic infection that causes gastrointestinal symptoms often associated with food poisoning, such as diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. It is caused by the parasite Cyclospora cayetanensis, also known simply as Cyclospora, and is usually contracted through contaminated food or water. Though unpleasant, it is not generally known to cause death, and many cases go unreported because people recover at home without visiting a doctor. It can cause more serious complications in people with compromised immune systems or other underlying health problems. The most common symptom is watery, frequent, and sometimes explosive diarrhea, according to the CDC and Cleveland Clinic, though other troubles can include vomiting, loss of appetite, bloating, including burping and gas or stomach cramps, extreme tiredness, fatigue, fever, and nausea. The Michigan centered outbreak linked by the Food and Drug Administration to recalled iceberg lettuce from Taylor Farms has been identified as the largest nationwide. Illnesses from the lettuce outbreak have been confirmed in 9 states: Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, according to the CDC. These states were identified after health officials tested sick people and traced the DNA, so to speak, of the infections to determine whether they were related. Those that are related are considered part of the same outbreak, likely stemming from the same source. Thus far, these 9 states are the only ones the CDC has been able to confirm as related to one another and trace back to the lettuce. The source of a cycloporosius outbreak is more difficult to track than foodborne illnesses because of a long incubation period, difficulty obtaining samples, and the inability to use the same genetic tracking tools available for pathogens such as E. coli and Listeria. Several separate case clusters have been identified by the CDC and the FDA, but no common cause has been identified.
Moving into the money section, Nestle pushes for simpler food labels. Nestles. Yeah, I remember. Lobbies U.S. officials on using common names. Rika Naidu of Reuters writes, as shoppers increasingly scrutinize ingredient labels to avoid products perceived as heavily processed, products perceived as heavily processed, Nestle, maker of Nescafé coffee and Kit Kat chocolates, has been lobbying U.S. authorities to allow simpler descriptions using common rather than scientific names. Examples include replacing the words ascorbic acid with the more widely understood vitamin C in the list of ingredients, and replacing beta-carotene with vitamin A. To avoid consumers rejecting unfamiliar ingredients, even when they are naturally derived or considered safe by regulators. Sometimes, the way we have to describe ingredients in the United States makes it sound like Frankenstein food, A former senior Nestle executive told Reuters. In reality, it's actually a natural ingredient that consumers have a natural word for. Nestle has raised the issue with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s team as officials review food labeling policies under the administration's Make America Healthy Again initiative, the executive said, and he asked not to be named. United States rules often require that packaging is labeled with less recognizable technical terms, which can deter shoppers from buying products and have at times pushed companies to remove some ingredients, according to industry sources. Meanwhile, in Europe, labeling depends on the intended use. Example, if an ingredient is used as an additive, it could be labeled antioxidant, which is ascorbic acid, or as a vitamin, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, or simply vitamin C. A report by Innova Market Insights found last year that about 3/4 of North American consumers reconsider what they're buying because of ingredients listed on the packaging. Most consumers look for real ingredients and an ingredient list that is easy to understand, according to the report. We continue to engage with stakeholders across the food industry on ways to help Americans make informed decisions about the food they purchase and consume, a spokesperson for HHS said. Some public health advocates argue that using less scientific labeling can be misleading and makes it easier for large food companies to be opaque about including food additives. Now, food companies have spent billions removing artificial colors, preservatives, and additives as consumers switch to products with shorter, more recognizable ingredient lists. Nestle's technology chief, Stefan Palzer, confirmed to Reuters that the company was engaged in lobbying via trade associations to make labels less complex. But it's difficult, Palzer said. We try to reduce ingredients that are not understood by consumers whenever possible without compromising the safety, quality, or functionality of the product. Palzer said consumers prefer ingredients that look familiar and products that have labels they understand.
Questions surround Trump accounts. From Susan Tompour, a columnist for USA Today. The Trump accounts site says, big things start with small steps. But if you're imagining that your child could have hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even millions, one day in a new tax-advantaged Trump account, well, take a careful look at what it takes to make the big bucks. Building wealth depends on a great deal on how many years the money remains invested after the child turns 18 years old. And much depends on whether family, friends, your employer, and others contribute cash along the way. Much will depend, too, on how well the stock market does over several years and how the money is invested. Ideally, Trump accounts should be viewed primarily as a way to start saving as early as possible for retirement, said Spencer Look, Associate Director of Retirement Studies at the Morningstar Center for Retirement and Policy Studies in Chicago. The idea behind federal children's savings accounts, which historically had bipartisan support, is that such accounts can offer many families more room to build wealth for the next generation. Trump accounts are the first federal child savings accounts in the United States. The risk, though, is that smaller balances could be more likely to be liquidated early on, based on other research, according to Look. Families with limited means may be more likely to want to put what money is available toward other expenses early in a young adult's life. At 18 or 19, for example, someone might want to use the money for education, training, or other expenses involved with transitioning into adulthood. At 30, someone might want to use the money for a down payment on a house. Like other financial analysts, Look has concluded that children from higher income households could be more likely to receive ongoing contributions as children into Trump accounts and remain invested well into their 50s. As a result, the shot of building wealth is greater for those with more wealth to start. Now, how much money can you grow in a Trump account? Babies born in 2025, 26, 27, and 28 could qualify for $1,000 in one-time seed money from the federal government once their parents or guardians sign up for an account. The children must be U.S. citizens with a valid Social Security number. It makes opening an account for a newborn very attractive and rich with dreams of wealth. One online estimate at trumpaccounts.gov indicates that the $1,000 might turn into $6,000 in 18 years, even if no more money is saved in the plan. That estimate is based on no additional contributions from family, friends, employers, or others. It reflects historical S&P 500 averages. Actual results may differ and are not guaranteed, the official website notes. Sure, it's debatable on how big those accounts can really get over time. But $6,000 might be in the ballpark after 18 years if things go well and you made some very minimal contributions over time, based on some numbers I ran through an online calculator. Or maybe if things don't go as well, you could see roughly half that amount. An online calculator for iShares by BlackRock gives an average hypothetical return of nearly $4,918 after 18 years. For example, if you invested $1,000 now and contributed $1 a month, that figure is based on an average return of 8.61% for the S&P 500 index. It includes the total contributions plus the total return. Return and hypothetical growth assumptions are based on rolling 20-year annualized returns. The range of possible outcomes for return on investment over 18 years for that scenario on that site is $3,230 to up to $6,869. Oh, the numbers can look even more grand at age 55 if the grown child doesn't touch the money at age 18 and after. By age 55, according to the trumpaccounts.gov site, the $1,000 is estimated to be able to grow to $243,000. Moo. That amount could grow to $13 million, according to the site, at age 55 if the account consistently saw $5,000 in contributions each year. Getting all that money isn't guaranteed, though, and you need some strong returns over the next 50-plus years. Look of Morningstar ran some of his own numbers, which triggered much lower outcomes on average. He's taking into account the possibility that many people could liquidate those accounts at age 18 or 30 and bring down the overall average significantly. Not all beneficiaries, Look said, are likely to keep their assets invested after they can access their accounts as soon as age 18. Look's calculations indicated that the average balance at age 55 could be as low as $39,000 for a child who only receives a $1,000 federal seed contribution. The average balance, he said, might be as high as $5.5 million at age 55 for a child who receives ongoing contributions of $5,000 a year from family and friends until reaching age 18. He said that the contributions of $5,000 a year stop at 18 in all contribution scenarios that he ran in his projection. After the growth period in the year the child turns 18, Lockwood noted, the grown child can start contributing to the account themselves, subject to the annual contribution limits that apply to individual retirement accounts. Currently, according to the U.S. Treasury, all contributions to Trump accounts will be invested in the State Street PDR portfolio S&P 500 ETF, a low-cost exchange-traded fund that tracks the performance of the S&P 500 index. This is the default fund. In the future, parents and guardians will be able to choose to invest in other low-cost options if they wish to change the investment allocation. How do you open a Trump account? Parents and legal guardians can use IRS Form 4547 when they file their taxes to elect to establish an initial Trump account for the exclusive benefit of a child who is eligible, or they can go to trumpaccounts.gov to sign up and find more information. There is no cost to open an account. Some families really have a good opportunity to stack wealth and should not overlook other avenues that offer to put more money into your child's account. More than 50 companies, according to the U.S. Treasury, committed to offering contributions to Trump accounts for the children of employees. Many times, though, we are talking about the companies promising to match the federal government's contribution for babies born in 2025, 26, 27, and 28. Dig into the details of the rules and restrictions of any promises made by companies or communities. The Trump account site lists several big names offering support, including Charter Communications, Dell Technologies, BlackRock, Uber, and Comcast.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45.
Continuing, how are Trump accounts taxed? The Trump account converts to a traditional IRA as of January 1st in the year that the child will reach 18. A child cannot access the cash, but money can be withdrawn when the beneficiary is an adult at 18. Once that milestone year is reached, the account is treated much like a traditional IRA for tax purposes. The earnings portion of withdrawals is generally taxable as ordinary income, according to Tom O'Sabin, Director of Tax Content and Government Relations at the National Association of Tax Professionals. The tax rate that would be paid would vary based on the beneficiary's income level. Currently, there are 7 federal income tax rates ranging from 10% to 37%. 1+, you would waive an additional 10% tax that might apply to early distributions before age 59 and a half. If the money is withdrawn to cover first-time homebuyer expenses up to $10,000 or used for qualified higher education expenses. Other cases where the 10% penalty tax is waived include when you reach age 59 and a half or older, death or total permanent disability, and certain medical-related expenses, according to Mark Luscombe, a principal analyst for Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting in River Woods, Illinois. Previously taxed contributions are recovered tax-free. The Trump account may remain open indefinitely and may later be converted to a Roth IRA under the normal Roth conversion rules. Unlike a Roth IRA or a 529 plan, Trump account contributions are made with after-tax dollars. So just the earnings are ultimately taxed as ordinary income rather than at long-term capital gain rates, O'Sabin told the Detroit Free Press. A younger saver who might not need the money for college could want to convert the account to a Roth IRA and pay the necessary taxes if they're in the lower tax bracket. But much depends on an individual's situation and how much money they have already set aside for college or whether they land sizable scholarships. Luscombe noted for some it might be savvy to convert to a Roth IRA as a young adult. Since an 18-year-old would be more likely to be in a lower tax bracket, the conversion tax might be lower than later in life, according to Luscombe. After conversion to the Roth, future earnings are tax-free if Roth IRA rules are met. Another key point, according to Luscombe, the annual contributions made by the parents or other relatives or friends to the Trump account would not be subject to tax, since those contributions do not receive an upfront tax break and are made after tax. Will Trump accounts hurt your ability to get a student loan? Parents should consider that it is possible that Trump accounts may reduce eligibility for need-based financial aid, according to Mark Kantrowitz, a student loan expert and author. We don't know exactly what will happen yet. As of July 20th, Kantrowitz noted, the U.S. Department of Education had not given guidance about how Trump accounts should be reported on the FAFSA or free application for federal student aid. Some scenarios could play out. It's possible that the money in the Trump account could be reported as a student asset, reducing a need-based aid eligibility by 20% of the asset value, according to Kantrowitz. This reduction would take place each year the college student applies for need-based aid until the Trump account is liquidated. Or, if Trump accounts are treated like a retirement asset, they are not reported as an asset on the FAFSA. If money was taken out to pay for college or other expenses, Kantrowitz said, distributions would count as ordinary income to the beneficiary, reducing aid eligibility by as much as half of the distribution amount. And finally, how do families save in Trump accounts? The annual contribution limit into Trump accounts is $5,000 total per child, with cost of living increases after the year 2027. qualifying charitable organizations and government entities may make additional contributions, and those contributions do not count toward the $5,000 limit. The one-time contribution of $1,000 from the U.S. Treasury does not count against the annual total of $5,000 contribution limit set for family, friends, and others. But parents might want to consider that there is no minimum required contribution. Saving even small amounts can help future generations. And if you're already rocking a baby or expect one on the way, Trump accounts are worth seriously considering, even if no one is quite certain on how much money your child may end up with at age 18 or 55.
The price of trust. The tap to pay is convenient, but these 6 steps can protect your money. Jason St. Angelo of USA Today writes, "You're not alone if you tap to pay without thinking much about it. Most of us do. Somebody smiles, asks if you can spare $20 for a good cause, and they hold out a card reader. And tapping feels faster than digging for cash. The problem is that scammers are banking on that kind of blind trust. The Better Business Bureau is warning consumers about tap-to-pay scams that can let criminals steal money directly from your bank account. But there's good news. A few simple habits can make it a lot harder for anybody to turn your generosity into a very expensive mistake. Now, a quick gut check list before you tap. So, picture this now. You're walking into a store. You're tired, maybe in a hurry, and 2 people ask if you'll help support students with a donation. Now, that's what happened to a 29-year-old woman in Michigan. She tapped to pay on her iPhone, assumed it was $50, didn't read the screen, and only later saw a $1,000 charge sitting in her account. When she looked back at the transaction in her banking app, the amount on the payment system had been set to $1,000 the whole time. Fraud experts say this kind of scam works best when you're rushed or distracted. The pitch sounds small and reasonable, but the device is set to a much higher amount, or even sends the money somewhere you didn't expect. So before you tap, try this quick gut check routine. Number 1, take 2 seconds and read the screen. Look at the name, the total, the tip line. If you can't clearly see who you are paying and how much, do not tap. Number 2, match what they say to what you see. If somebody says, it's just $20, but the screen shows $200, or you're not sure what it shows, pause until you are certain. Number 3, scan for sneaky extras. Tip fields and extra charges can quietly turn a small donation into a bigger hit to your budget. Number 4, slow everything down. If the person keeps talking to distract you or pushes your hand toward the device, that's your sign to step away. Keep your phone or your card in your own hands. You should be the one holding your device, not handing it over for somebody else to help you tap. Number 6, have a go-to line ready if you're not feeling good about the situation. Amy Nofziger from the AARP Fraud Watch Network suggested something simple, like, I don't give money to organizations that I don't know or people I don't know. Say it, smile if you want to, and keep walking. She told USA Today Network's Susan Tompar. And now red flags that should make you think twice. Once you know what to look for, the scammy situations start to stand out a little bit more. Most tap-to-pay donation scams share a few common threads. Here are some of the uh-oh moments that are worth paying attention to. We only take tap-to-pay, no cash. Now, legitimate causes are usually fine with regular payment methods. If somebody shuts down when you pull out cash, that's a really big flag. Next, you're being rushed through the whole thing. They're talking fast, they're nudging you toward the device, or acting annoyed when you try to read the screen. They don't want you paying attention. The group does not sound familiar, and details are fuzzy. If you can't easily look up the organization or the person can't clearly explain who they are, it's fair to say you're going to donate later through an official website and then actually check. Next, the whole setup feels improvised. It's a folding table in a parking lot, a device you've never seen before, somebody holding your phone for you. If your gut says this feels off, listen. The bottom line, generosity is great, but you don't owe anybody a tap in the moment. If you're not sure, it's perfectly fine to walk away. Look up the cause on your own later and donate in a way that makes it feel safer for you. Should I turn off tap to pay on my phone? No, that's optional. But turning off tap to pay when you're not using it or requiring your phone to be unlocked to pay can give some people extra peace of mind. Is it safer to use a credit card than a debit card for donations? Well, credit cards generally offer stronger fraud and purchase protections than debit or peer-to-peer payment apps. If you're donating online or through a trusted site, a credit card often gives you a better backup if something goes wrong. Do payment apps have transaction limits that can protect me? Transaction limits may apply based on your bank, your card issuer, or the specific account terms. Check your app's settings and policies. Some have extra checks or delays for bigger payments. And what's the first thing I should do if I see a wrong amount? Check the transaction details and contact your bank or your card issuer right away and dispute the charge. So is tap to pay always risky or just certain situations? The issue isn't a technology itself, it's how and where you use it, like on-the-spot donations as opposed to transaction with a known merchant. Can I ask for a receipt when I tap to donate? Oh yeah. Legitimate charities should be fine giving you a receipt, and checking it right away helps you confirm the amount and who got the money instead of trusting the tap. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, August the 6th, 2026. We're on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, the role of Dodgers villain lands on Scooball from Mark Giannotto of USA Today. The first fans booed Terry Scooball at 6:22 p.m. Central Time as he jogged on the outfield grass in front of the visitors' bullpen at Wrigley Field. They booed him again and louder than any of his new teammates when the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup was announced. They booed more as Scooball stepped to the mound for his first start with the team, which also doubled as his first career start inside the friendly confines. The two-time American League Cy Young Award winner was officially a villain, and he already knew it. It's a feeling that will become familiar. I plan on pitching in front of those atmospheres for the rest of the season, Scooball said. I actually haven't made a home start in the postseason. They've all been on the road. I've pitched in pretty good environments, and I'd say that's up there with any of those postseason starts. The result of Scooball's debut as a Dodger, a 5-1 Cubs win on August the 4th, wasn't as significant as the sensation everyone involved left with once this highly anticipated regular season game was over. The potential presented by Scooball's overwhelming power, as well as the perils of being an overwhelming favorite, were on display for a sold-out crowd of more than 40,000 and a national television audience. If this Los Angeles team is indeed ruining baseball en route to a third consecutive World Series championship and perhaps a lockout, it'll only do so after taking the entire sport's best shot. Everyone can't play here for the Dodgers, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said of the pressure. There is a target on these Dodgers unlike their last two predecessors that had won titles, and it got bigger when they acquired the best pitcher in baseball. That really confronted Scooball almost as much as he walked out inside Wrigley Field on Tuesday, even though he's now another superstar on a roster filled with them. A plane flew around the stadium a few hours before the first pitch, carrying a banner that read, "The Dodgers ruined baseball." It was sponsored by by Underdog Sports, a daily fantasy sports and predictions market operator. There was just one problem. The banner was upside down. Scooball said he struggled to fall asleep Monday night. It felt like my major league debut, he explained. Roberts admitted before the game that Scooball just wants to get this first one out of the way. Yes, one of 162. But I do think Tarek Scooball making a start for the Dodgers is a big deal for baseball, Roberts said of the moment. So when Scooball struck out Cubs star center fielder Pete Crow Armstrong, looking with a 99-mile-per-hour fastball to start the game. A solo home run by Dansby Swanson was the lone hit of substance Scooball allowed before the sixth inning, even though his strike rate was the lowest it had been in 3 years. Then came a sequence seemingly set up for Scooball's first fist-pumping, adrenaline-fueled celebration in a Dodgers uniform. He had nearly escaped his only jam when he fired a four-seam fastball at the top of the strike zone that Nico Hoerner hit directly into the dirt. The ball traveled just 1 foot in the air, according to the official scorer, but then bounced so high into the Chicago night that Hoerner had nearly reached first base by the time it settled into the glove of Dodgers infielder Tommy Edman. A run scored and a 1-1 stalemate was broken. Scooball finished having pitched 6 innings and given up 2 runs on 4 hits with 6 strikeouts in his first game with the Dodgers. He was on the hook for the loss, but there's nothing he really throws that you can hit hard, Hoerner said with a laugh. That, of course, is why the Dodgers traded for Scooball. It's why he could command $400 million as a free agent after this season. It's also why nobody is ready to make this easy on them.
Not too early preseason considerations. Top 25 coaches polled teams will need answers. Paul Meyerberg of USA Today writes, even the best teams in the football bowl subdivision head into the regular season with an unanswered question or two. These are the kind of preseason questions that leave coaches tossing and turning, fretting over the possibility that one weak link or unsolved conundrum could doom a shot at the college football playoffs or the national championship. This includes Ryan Day at Ohio State, ranked number 1 in the preseason USLBM coaches poll. The Buckeyes have nearly flawless personnel, but will a new hire at coordinator pan out and lift OSU back to the top of the Big Ten? USA Today Sports breaks down one big question facing every team in the preseason coaches poll that was just released August 4th. Number 1, Ohio State. Can Ryan Day ace another NFL hire? Number 2, Oregon. Is the offensive line up to snuff? Number 3, Georgia. Who makes plays at receiver? Number 4, Texas. Can Will Muschamp unlock more from the defense? We'll give you more as soon as I can figure out where it's hiding here.
Page
This is rough when your fingers are doing the walking here. Number 5, Notre Dame. Who joins Aeneas Williams at running back? Number 6, Indiana. Can the Hoosiers hit it big again with transfers? Number 7, Miami. Can the defensive line be even better? Number 8, Texas A&M. Is Damian Stafford ready to go? Number 9, Oklahoma. Can the offense unlock more explosiveness? Number 10, Ole Miss. What changes under Pete Golding? Number 11, Alabama. Is this another pitiful running game? Number 12, Texas Tech. Is Will Hammond healthy and ready?
Number 13, Louisiana State University. How quickly does this come together? 14, Southern Cal. Does Gary Patterson still have the touch? 15, Brigham Young University. Who steps up at receiver? 16, Michigan. Is Bryce Underwood noticeably improved? 17, Penn State. How much can the Nittany Lions make out of an easier Big Ten schedule? 18, Tennessee. Could the quarterback competition last into September? 19, Washington. Is everything good with Damone Williams Jr.? Number 20, SMU. Can the Mustangs take care of things in September? 21, Utah. How worrisome is this offensive line? 22, Iowa. Is special teams still an area of strength? 23, Clemson. Can Ched Morris fix things on the ground and on third down? 24, Houston. How much will Kesey and Henderson play? And number 25, Missouri. Can the Tigers handle this tougher schedule?
Aaron Rodgers, not one to bite his tongue. The quarterback muses on Fauci, ESPN, and his final season. Jared Bell, columnist for USA Today, writes, Aaron Rodgers is gearing up for a last ride with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but rest assured, the quarterback is not hitting the campaign trail and running for office. Call him polarizing or a lightning rod, or worse, not fazed. I don't give a crap about anything that people think about me unless they're in my corner, and I'd ask them for advice, Rodgers told USA Today Sports. The star quarterback and anti-vaxxer would not plead the fifth when asked whether he is concerned about hits to his image. That would be a flat no, period. Now, yet, Rodgers undoubtedly struck some nerves when he went on ESPN during the Pat McAfee show on August the 3rd and mocked Dr. Anthony Fauci by pleading the fifth to an opening question, and then called the former infectious disease advisor a hero to many during the pandemic, a coward for invoking the fifth during a recent congressional hearing. I don't care about the criticism from people like that, Rogers said. Most people have made up their mind about me, so it doesn't matter what I say. It's not going to change their mind because most people aren't listening to the content of your words. They're wanting to attack your character because they think you're MAGA, or they think you're, whatever tag they put on you. Conspiracy theorist, anti-science. They've already made up their mind about me before this. As we sat in the shade on a bench outside the locker room following a training camp practice on August 4th, Rogers, who's 42, reflected on myriad topics as he gears up for the 22nd and final NFL season. He mentioned that the chance to reunite with Coach Mike McCarthy was the reason he returned after contemplating retirement, and he was nostalgic about their experience of winning Super Bowl 45 together with the Green Bay Packers. He shed light on reconnecting with his parents and older brother, and he expressed optimism about the Steelers developing into a title contender. For all of that, though, Rodgers maintained that he is compelled to get a few things off his chest, or sling a few darts, if you will. Rodgers on Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini drama. Now, that was the mindset attached to his appearance with McAfee, when he not only blasted Fauci, but had pointed comments about the Mike Vrabel-Diana Rossini drama. He criticized ESPN for not engaging in deeper coverage of the scandal that involved the New England Patriots coach and one of the network's former reporters, who was more recently with The Athletic, and questioned the integrity of voting for annual awards, given that Rossini was a member of the 50-person Associated Press panel that determines the NFL Coach of the Year and other league honors. For me, it's just about leveling the playing field with a little get back based on the hypocrisy that I've seen for so many years, especially from some of the big networks, Rogers said. And I don't care. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to agree with me. I mean, I'm not doing it for the likes. I'm saying my piece. This is my last year. If you like it, great. You don't, great. It doesn't bother me day to day. So there. The last ride is going to come with some last words from Rodgers. Of course, depending on where else this goes, it could make the Steelers and the NFL a bit nervous, given their desire to float apolitically as a matter of principle to try to avoid turning off large segments of the fan base. Now, remember, there are also politics in play, real or perceived, when considering some or all of the networks referred to by Rodgers, one of the NFL's highest profile players, are NFL partners. After Rodgers' comments on the ESPN distributed show on Monday, the Steelers released a down-the-middle statement from team spokesman Bert Loughton that provided cover for the quarterback and distance for the team. Discussions around culture and politics can bring differing perspectives, and our players are entitled to their own personal views, Loughton said. With respect to that, I am certain there are a variety of opinions on many topics within our locker room. Of course, another topic that Rodgers broached, voting for NFL awards, hit home. Rodgers won his fourth NFL MVP award for the 2021 season by a landslide. Yet it is likely still salty that longtime Chicago-based writer Hub Arkush publicly declared at the time that he would not vote for the quarterback because of Rodgers' misleading comments about his vaccination status, which led to him missing a game during the pandemic-affected 2020 season. That Rossini was a voter, at least in recent years, for awards that include MVP, Coach of the Year, and other season honors didn't sit well with Rodgers. It's not a little thing, Rodgers said. The fact that there's voting involved, it makes other people in the business look bad. And then there's the family business. In July, Rodgers posted photos on Instagram of himself posing with his parents, Ed and Darla, and his older brother, Luke, for the first time since he launched the social media account in 2017. The reconciliation, Rodgers acknowledged recently to NFL Network, was inspired by his wife, Brittany, who was not shown in the photos. While he wouldn't delve deeper into the family matter, the apparent rift became public when his brother Jordan spoke of the strained relationship in 2016 as a contestant on The Bachelorette. Rodgers said the timing was right to reveal that part of his personal journey. I feel like it was part of the full circle nature of this last season for me, he said. There's been a narrative out there. There's been a lot of information that's truthful about it. And I think that the personal life should stay personal and private. But I feel like it was part of the full circle to just one time post something, and never again, so that the narrative can finally be put to rest. Okay, sure, this last ride for Rodgers is deeper than using his huge platform to air grievances or set the record straight. He wants to win big again, also. After a drubbing from the Houston Texans in the AFC wildcard round provided a pitiful end to last season, Rodgers first with the Steelers and Mike Tomlin's last, there's something to be said, too, about chasing that ring again. Using the term chasing the ring is usually applying to, like old guys, like LeBron going to Philly and me still hanging around, Rodgers said. But if you're not doing that, what are you doing? I mean, I was chasing the ring when I was in the first year starting, but our team wasn't the team in 2008 that was probably championship caliber. I think, expectations are high here, which they always were in Green Bay. I think we got the team that could do that. Imagine that, Rodgers riding off into the sunset in championship glory. Now that would be some kind of a last word.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:18. Panic mode sets in as playoffs loom, from Adam Schupak of Golf Week and the USA Today Network. Swing instructor Adam Schreiber says this week's Wyndham Championship is officially when panic mode sets in for players on the PGA Tour. You gotta play good golf, said veteran pro Denny McCarthy, who enters the week at number 84 in the FedEx Cup standings and needs a minimum of a fifth-place finish to advance to the first playoff tournament in Memphis. This week marks the final of 34 regular season events in the FedEx Cup, and only 70 players will advance to the next week's FedEx St. Jude Championship, the first of 3 playoff events that will eventually crown a season-long champion in Atlanta. It's one of the more stressful weeks of the season, and Schreiber, whose students include 2025 U.S. Open champion J.J. Spawn, has been fielding inquiries from players seeking a quick fix that might help them get over the hump. But, as he put it, I don't like to do this Band-Aids. Chris Kirk, who finished tied for 5th, was the only player to move inside the top 70 following the 2025 Wyndham Championship. But just about everyone whose playoff chances hang in the balance is here otherwise. Past British Open winner Shane Lowry, number 60, is the only player ranked from number 60 through 80 in the FedEx Cup standings who was not in the field this week, and there's no way he falls out of the top 70. But other past major champs and Aussie Jason Day, number 75, who needs at least a two-way tie for 12th, and Keegan Bradley, who is number 72, both sit outside the top 70 and are seeking to extend their streak of consecutive playoffs appearances, with Day going for his 19th since 2008, while Bradley, who needs a two-way tie for 38th, seeks his 16th since 2011. A five-time major champion Brooks Koepka sits at number 86 and needs a minimum fourth-place finish. Contrast those streaks of longevity with that of Jackson Koiven, a 21-year-old rookie who finished tied for fifth last year at this event, playing as a sponsor exemption as an amateur. 2 weeks ago, he won the 3M Open by 3 strokes over world number 1 Scotty Scheffler, becoming the youngest American to win a PGA Tour event by multiple strokes since Ralph Galdau at the 1932 Phoenix Open. Koiven shot 3 bogey-free rounds and broke the 72-hole tournament scoring record with a 25 under 259 and climbed from 149th to 70th in the standings. He enters this week as the Bubble Boy, who would be the last man in if things were to remain as they are. It's definitely in the back of my mind, he said. I still have a little bit of work to do. I like to tell myself that good golf takes care of everything. I always thought I had a shot at the playoffs, and I could play good golf and give myself a chance. Should he hang on to a spot in the top 70, Koiven, who is making his 6th start this week, would tie for the second fewest starts in a season by a player to qualify for the FedEx Cup. The playoffs also reward season-long consistency, such as that of Jordan Spieth, who is 55th in the standings entering this week, the highest mark of any player without a top 10 on tour this season. He would become the first player since Seamus Power in 2024 to qualify without a top 10 finish. Since the inception of the FedEx Cup in 2007, the Wyndham Championship has played host to the FedEx Cup regular season finale since 2008 at Sedgefield Country Club. While making the playoffs comes with the guarantee of playing privileges for the 2027 season, allowing players to take off the fall portion of the schedule if they'd like an extended off season. It isn't the make or break pressure that it used to be. There still will be 7 FedEx Cup fall events for players to battle to make the top 100 and keep their card for next season. All making the top 70 guarantees is one more start, said veteran pro Stephen Jagger, who enters the week at number 77 and needs a minimum finish of a 3-way tie for 11th. It's nothing new. We deal with it, the playoff pressure every year. Canadian Mackenzie Hughes has his work cut out for him. The 2-time tour winner is behind the 8 ball, having recorded only 2 top 10 finishes, both tied for 10. And sit at number 120, which makes him the last ranked player who can potentially make the playoffs with less than a win on Sunday. Speaking for himself as well as the rest of the players in the field who need the stars to align at Sedgefield, he said, "Just hoping I can get a little magic going."
Hall of Fame game, starting quarterbacks are set. Joe Rivera of USA Today writes, fans itching for some real NFL football are getting a tease on Thursday night, August the 6th, when the Arizona Cardinals and Carolina Panthers kick off the preseason with the Hall of Fame game. Those same fans won't be getting a marquee quarterback matchup, however. The Cardinals will turn to intriguing rookie Carson Beck, while the Panthers are lining up 2022 first-round pick Kenny Pickett when the game kicks off in Canton, Ohio, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, NBC. The Cardinals announced Tuesday the decision to start Beck, while the Panthers made their move official on Monday. Now, Beck is one of the more noteworthy passers selected in the 2026 draft. Picked in the 3rd round, University of Miami and University of Georgia product has something of a murky outlook in the NFL. Beck said the call was something of a surprise. I had no clue that I was going to start. Obviously, I thought I was going to play in it, but I didn't really have any expectations of starting going into any of this, Beck said Tuesday, adding he has no nerves heading into the game. On the other sideline, Pickett is looking to stick to an NFL roster. After being selected in the first round of the 2022 draft by the Steelers, Pickett is on his 5th team in 4 seasons, failing to latch on with the Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Carolina's Bryce Young and Arizona's Jacoby Brissett are the presumptive quarterback number one for their respective teams. Excuse me. So here's who the Panthers are lining up come the regular season. At number 1, Bryce Young. Number 2, Kenny Pickett. Number 3, Haynes King. Now, Young is entering a critical season for his career. He's shown flashes while under Dave Canale's guidance, but the 2023 number 1 overall selection has yet to find the consistency needed to be considered a bona fide franchise passer. With the Panthers picking up his fifth-year option this offseason, Young is in good position to earn himself a contract extension next offseason, should he perform well. At minimum, Young will get at least one more season to prove he's the long-term answer for the Panthers. The Cardinals' quarterback depth chart. So here's how the quarterback room lines up in Arizona. At number 1, Jacoby Brissett. Number 2, Gardner Minshew. Number 3, Carson Beck. Number 4, Kedon Slovis. Now, interestingly, Beck gets the first bite at the apple in the Cardinals' first preseason game ahead of Gardner Minshew, the backup. Beck was something of a polarizing prospect, but was selected on the second day, 67th overall, by the Cardinals. Beck was the third quarterback off the board, selected behind Fernando Mendoza, who was first overall, and Ty Simpson, who was 16th overall. Brissett will likely get the call come week 1 as the team's QB number 1 after reworking his contract with the organization for the 2026 season. Minshew, another veteran, may fill in as the team's QB2, but his battle with Beck will be the one to watch as the summer heats up.
Angels Trout commends his team's trade fire sale from Gabe LeKay of USA Today. Mike Trout has seen false hope. He has seen his Los Angeles Angels loiter in the middle, or much worse, of the Major League Baseball's pecking order, yet comport themselves as if a turnaround was around the corner. And he still has not seen a postseason game since 2014, a drought that will continue through this season. Yet Trout saw something much different at the August 3rd trading deadline, when new general manager John Mozeliak acted appropriately for the steward of a 43-69 team that's headed for its third consecutive last-place finish. He saw number 2 starter Jose Soriano traded to the Toronto Blue Jays for a 3-player package that includes a top 100 shortstop prospect, Arjun Mimala, and outfielder Joe Adell, dealt to Cleveland. Reliever Ryan Zafarjan sent to the Chicago Cubs for a package including promising slugger Moises Ballesteros. And for good measure, another bullpen piece, veteran Kirby Yates, shipped to Pittsburgh. Staying put, left-hander Reed Demeters, shortstop Zach Neto, leaving a reputable baseball product roughly in place while practicing dark pragmatism. And Trout can dig it. Obviously, what was happening the last few years wasn't working, the 4-time MVP told USA Today Sports. Just change it up a bit. If you look where the team is, I think it's the right move. The moves, I should say, came as a little shock to Trout. As a show of good faith to the franchise player, Mozeliak invited him into the team's trade deadline war room recently. A veteran of 16 big league seasons, Trout, who was 34, has steadfastly refused to waive his no-trade clause to get out of the Anaheim sinkhole. In past administrations, most notably General Manager Perry Minasian, who was fired on June 27th, that wasn't even a consideration. Minasian specialized in drafting close to the majors, lower-ceiling players in a constant attempt to plug the many holes at the big league level. It was an approach that kept the big league product from totally bottoming out, yet never produced anything close to a contender, let alone a sustainable one. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:30. Continuing, Mosliak already changed that part up, drafting two-way prep player Jared Grindlinger. Dealing Adele Zafarjan and Soriano was the next step. I had a feeling what was going to happen, says Trout. Me and Mo, we've been talking, but it was good. I build friendships with those guys over the years. To see them go, it's tough, but not all of them. Detmers, who is 27, has a 1.09 WHIP, who had an excellent 7-year start run. The Angels won 6 of them, heading into July, that put his name on the trade front burners. At one point, a false report Monday had him traded to the Chicago Cubs. Detmer's phone subsequently blew up, foiling his plan of staying away from it as much as possible as he chilled with his teammates on an off day. A call to his agent quickly quelled the scare. If it did happen, says Detmers, I figured I'd get a phone call, but I never got a phone call. The phony info only served another helping of angst on his Monday. A pretty stressful day yesterday, he says, but I'm happy to be here. After battling injuries throughout his 30s, Trout returned to the All-Star game this season after a 2-year absence, has 18 home runs and a 8.845 OPS, and is on pace to play in at least 130 games for the second consecutive season.
Moving into the life section and books, an article about author Riley Sager. Felicia Wellington Riddell of USA Today writes, Sager's Unknown recalls 9 twisty novels. Now, thrillers usually end with a final girl, but Riley Sager's journey began with one. His debut novel, Final Girls, which was published in 2017. It was a hit. So were his next books, each attaining bestseller status. Sager's latest, The Unknown, which is out now, is his 10th novel in 10 years. Now, in the novel Unknown, Marin Kane, a struggling actress, has been cast in a major film with big co-stars and an even bigger director. But the role requires a trip for the cast to the script's source material, an isolated island in Vermont where the 5 women they're portraying disappeared 100 years ago, leaving behind only their dresses hanging from an old tree. The immersive retreat starts off with period costumes and seances, but there are also strange noises, symbols, and other sightings, and then people start disappearing. He wanted to do something special with The Unknown. Sager tells USA Today, when I pitched it to my editor, I said, I wanted this to feel like my Eras tour. Sager said, I knew that it would contain different elements from my other books. Easter eggs and allusions to earlier works are woven into Unknown, along with indirect references, such as similar themes, characters, and plot points. There's no set number of spoilers, Sager says. I didn't push them. If something didn't fit, I didn't include it. Now, early on in the book, regular Sager readers may recognize mentions of Ewan Holt and Camp Nightingale. And no spoilers, but his favorite Easter egg is related to the character Roman Peters. That one's sneaky. Settings add to the shared lore among the books. Many of the lead characters of Sager's novels have connections to Pennsylvania, where Sager grew up. The Unknown also is the third one taking place in Vermont, where he says he likes to set his spooky books. It feels haunted, and I mean that as a compliment, Sager said. I guess it's all the history, all the mountains, and just something about it feels inherently spooky. I love it. Longtime fans who have checked out some of the publications from Sager under other names, his given name, Todd Ritter, and his alias, Alan Finn, might wonder about wonder about familiarities there. Although The Unknown delves into mediums and seances similar to Finn's Things Half in Shadow from 2014, it's more coincidence than connection. I've always been fascinated with spiritualism, seances, and spooky things. Creepy lakes, Sager says. But catching the callbacks isn't required. I look at this book as a celebration of 10 years, while also being a book that someone who's never read me before can pick up and hopefully enjoy, Sager says. The writing process for each book has been somewhat different for Sager. The House Across the Lake was so easy, Sager says. I knew from the start that it was going to be absolutely bonkers. I didn't second guess myself, and I had the full support of my agent and my editor, so I had fun with it. He said writing it was the most creative experience he's had to date. I've been trying to replicate it ever since. The most difficult book? Home Before Dark. Sager says he's proud of that novel, but that one truly did almost kill me. Scheduling problems and other conflicts meant he was writing nearly 12 to 14 hours straight every day for a couple of months just to make the deadline. I love that people love it, he says, but I never want to experience that again. Survive the Night was one of his most misunderstood, he says. It was a movie. Although Sager says he doesn't really have a favorite among his novels, 3 that influenced his career most are standouts. Some books mean more to me than others, just by nature of how they fit into my life, Sager says. Final Girls changed my life. The House Across the Lake, because it was so much fun to write. And The Only One Left, because that one resonated in ways I never imagined. When I was writing it, I truly thought, everybody's going to hate this one. That is by far my most popular book. Now, broadly, though, the best-selling author is proud of all his books and grateful for his success. This is what I've always dreamed about, Sager says. There is a definite sense of gratitude. Now, plot twists, turns, and a couple of final surprises, they're common, inevitable, maybe, in every Sager novel. But there is also usually more to the books beyond the central mysteries. Even if a reader cottons on to a coming twist, the catch wasn't the core part. There's usually something else being built, a subtle theme or a social observation in the background of Sager's tightly written books that does not become clear until the very end, along with the mystery being unraveled. I try to have excellent twists, Sager says. I try to surprise readers, but I do want the book to be about more than just the twist. I have read books where it was solely about the twist, and I found those to be disappointing reading experiences. So I want to try to give readers both. I want the gotcha twists and the surprises, but I also want characters that resonate and people to still be thinking about the book long after they finished it. So what's next for Sager? While promotion kicks off for The Unknown, Sager is busy working on his next book, set to release in 2027. I can't say too much, except if book number 10 was the quintessential Riley Sager book. Book 11 is, I've never done anything like it.
Celebrity Offspring Bond on Shards from Eric Jensen of USA Today. On December the 12th of 1991, Cindy Crawford, who had been recovering from the flu, boarded a plane from Los Angeles to Las Vegas without any makeup and her dark honey-colored tresses pulled into a ponytail to elope with Richard Gere. The pair, who met in 1988, decided to get married at 6 o'clock on Thursday night, the model told Arsenio Hall on an episode of his eponymously named talk show, and we were married at 11. Crawford, then host of MTV's fashion-focused House of Style, put on some old suit that I'd had forever and made their wedding bands herself, using tin foil. After the wedding, we had dinner at Denny's or something, she revealed, noting it wasn't like that glamorous kind of thing. But it was fun. Nearly 3 years later to the day, Crawford, now 60, and Gere, who was 76, announced their split on December the 1st, 1994. The following year, Crawford attributed their demise to a lack of time together in an interview with People magazine. "We're equally responsible for that," she told the outlet. "We thought it would be okay if we just flew in from Paris to LA to get together for a night to see each other. And it wasn't." Now, Crawford's daughter, with husband Randy Gerber, Kaya Gerber, and Gere's son with ex-wife Carrie Lowell, Homer Gere, play love interests in FX's The Shards, Ryan Murphy's adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's coming-of-age novel. Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on FX and Hulu. "The odds are funny," Homer acknowledged to USA Today at the series' July 27th premiere at New York's SVA Theater. "She's a lovely actress in person, and we've gotten really close." Homer is 26, plays the enigmatic Robert Mallory in the series set in 1981, a new face who rocks an aesthetically gifted clique at a Los Angeles high school as a serial killer sets out for blood. Kaya, who is 24, portrays a perfect in every way Susan Reynolds, best friend of aspirational writer Bret Easton Ellis, played by Igby Rigney, frenemy to an insecure Debbie Schaefer, played by Hayes Warner, and love of sensitive jock Tom Wright, played by Graham Campbell. "We didn't intentionally set out to do it like that," executive producer Brad Simpson says. First cast was Kaya, who has appeared in Murphy's anthology drama American Horror Story and its spin-off American Horror Stories. Then came Homer, who recently completed a 4-episode arc in season 3 of HBO's Euphoria. Homer came in, and he was both accessible and mysterious at the same time, Simpson says. "Obviously, he's an incredibly good-looking guy and charming, and there's a sweetness to Homer himself. But he was able to play that real mystery around Robert. This question about, is he being sincere or is he holding something back?" Before shooting, the young castmates met up at LA's divey Ye-Rustic Inn, suggested by Kaya. She had butterflies about the outing. Her co-stars had met each other briefly in auditions, and I wasn't a part of that process, she says, seated next to Campbell. "I was really nervous because I knew that they all had a quality or had shown something that Ryan saw and knew was right for their characters. The uncertainty about what traits made her right for Susan lingered as she sat with her castmates. I remember very idiotically now, in hindsight," Kaya says, "like after 20 minutes, I'm noticing everyone interacting. I'm like, God, you guys are all so much like your characters, except for me." "We went, you're the most like your character," said Campbell, 24. Kaya herself realized that's actually the most Susan thing I could have said in that moment. Homer's actions during their first meeting also aligned with his character. Homer, in true Robert fashion, showed up 20 minutes late, Kaya says, pointing out that he entered as bonding was already in progress, just as Robert does in the series when he breaks into the group of longtime friends. "It's a lot like the lunch scene where you meet Robert in our show, in the pilot. But unlike their characters, Kaya and Homer are connected by an interlaced past. I knew obviously we were going to address it," Kaya says, "so I think I just was like, if I say it first, then we don't really ever have to talk about it again. And I think we both literally immediately were like, well, and hugged, and then very quickly realized we have so much more in common in other spaces that was kind of like the least interesting thing about our relationship. Also, Homer and I dated briefly in the 90s too," Campbell jokes. "That kind of cut the tension a little bit because it was complicated." Hearing Homer talk about Kaya, it's easy to see why the two would become close. "She's very friendly and intelligent and quirky," he says. "She's just a good, nice person." The cast also delighted in Crawford's affability. Rigney, who was 23, enjoyed a lovely dinner with Crawford, in which he didn't ask any questions about the 80s, if you were wondering. "It's just meeting a friend's mom," Rigney says. "It was very, very normal. She's the best. She's been so supportive and helpful and familial to us all," said Warner, 27. We've all met each other's parents. It's like we've spent so much time together. I've met everyone. We know everyone's family. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:45.
Sudeikis faces his fears and returns to the lasso pitch. Aaron Johnson of USA Today writes, "Old characters, like old habits, die hard. Despite saying so long, farewell to the Greyhounds in the season 3 finale, Ted Lasso star Jason Sudeikis' thoughts constantly turn to the world constructed in the cheery London suburb of Richmond, where Midwestern-born and bred Coach Lasso, played by Sudeikis, and his crew transformed a written-off soccer team while reminding viewers that doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. I was filling up my notes app," Sudeikis reveals to USA Today. In 2023's last episode, Ted declined an offer by club owner Rebecca Welton, played by Hannah Waddingham, to stay and continue coaching. His heart was set on returning to Kansas City to be closer to his son Henry. Now, more than 3 years after a finale interpreted by many as the series end, Ted Lasso suits up again for season number 4, Apple TV, Wednesdays. The 10-part installment jumps 3 years into the future. Ted's gig as an assistant manager at a grocery store allows him to spend more time with Henry, formerly played by Gus Turner and now recast as Grant Feely. But it doesn't challenge Ted to live up to his full potential. An opportunity to coach AFC Richmond's women's team, a new venture proposed by Keely Jones, played by Juno Temple, in season 3, pushes him to reevaluate his circumstances. After the finale, the voices of the beloved characters still swirled in Sudeikis' head, but he worried about having enough to warrant a return. And it's scary to jump back in. Sudeikis, who's 50, concedes. But it's like, doesn't that kind of mean you're supposed to do it? Like you're supposed to walk toward the fear and face that, confront it? In February of 2024, Sudeikis, his co-creators, and some of the writers assembled at the historic Ojai Valley Inn, a resort 82 miles northwest of Los Angeles. It was mostly just about making crayons, Sudeikis explains. Can we make enough crayons to draw more show? Because it's not a single person's endeavor. It's the ensemble arts in the best way. And so I wanted to hear other people's authentic enthusiasm. Now, Jason was pretty sure at that point he wanted to do a women's team, says Hunt, age 54. But they questioned whether the team should be in Richmond or even in the United States. Ultimately, they decided on Richmond. We talked about a lot of big picture things, Hunt says, and just came away with a feeling like, yeah, all right, there's enough here. The soil remains fertile. Let's have a go. Working at a local grocery to make up for lost time, Ted has overcorrected, Sudeikis says. But I don't think that's helping his heart at all. Therefore, I don't know if it's the best situation for Henry. It's a display, Hunt says, of what it's important to put your own oxygen mask on first in a plane emergency before helping others. In far less dramatic terms, that is what Ted is finally realizing he needs to do, Hunt says. You've got to fill your own cup, your lungs, before you're really the best version of the person who can then do that for other people. Similarly, it's the desire Sudeikis has to be an example for his own children, Otis, age 12, and Daisy, 9, whom he shares with former fiancée Olivia Wilde, that has inspired a litmus test likely used by many parents. Is this worth being away from my kids? You can make money in all sorts of ways, Sudeikis says. But I want to make money and leave the house for something that feels worthwhile versus being like, oh, I have to go and do this or I need to go do this. It's like, no, I want to go do this. Sudeikis says his mother and sisters modeled a passion for work. And it's a neat influence to grow up under, he says. I know my kids have that with their mother, and I hope they have that with their father. How long might Sudeikis be providing this example? Is the ebullient Ted Lasso? When asked about the number of ideal seasons, Sudeikis and Hunt kept the cover on their playbook. Oh, at least 4, Hunt quips, before Sudeikis goes for another laugh. I don't know. 69's always a funny answer. It would be a far cry from the first season, which propped up viewers during the unprecedented and unpredictable COVID-19 pandemic when it premiered in 2020. What does hope look like in 2026? What does believing look like now? Maybe that we're not all as far apart as our algorithms can make us feel, Sudeikis offers, after briefly mulling it over. That we're all going through this together, all this craziness, while elements of it truly are real and difficult. Maybe some of the rhetoric around it is keeping us away from a solution.
Returning to our front section for this article, bobcats get new lease on life at sanctuary. From Jack Perry of the Providence Journal and the USA Today Network. Rolling on her back with a stranger, snapping photos just inches away from behind a chain-link fence, a bobcat named Manka could pass for a big, playful, even hammy house cat. I don't know why this cat was born like this. She's just a friendly cat, says Carl Bussey, founder of Rustic Acres Wildcat Rescue in Chepachet, Rhode Island, where Manka lives with 3 other bobcats. But Bussey quickly cautions Manka shouldn't be mistaken for a cuddly domestic cat. She can be terrifying, Bussey says. Proving Bussey's point only a few minutes later, Manka makes a deep, blood-chilling bark and launches at a stranger who walks too closely to her. Thankfully, she's behind a strong fence. Manka will soon have more room to amuse and terrify the rare visitors to her home. A lot has been happening lately at the rescue. The enclosures that house the bobcats are being expanded. Finishing touches are also being put on a veterinary clinic and a new fenced enclosure that will enable the facility to rehabilitate orphaned, injured, or sick bobcats rescued in the wild. Bussey and her husband, Brian Bennett, started the sanctuary in 2018. They moved from Massachusetts after finding a house in rural Chepachet on 9 acres at border woods and a pond. The couple live on the property and have full-time jobs working from home. She's a graphic designer and he's a computer programmer. In addition to the 4 bobcats, the rescue houses 13 domestic cats, including 2 feral animals. The 2 feral cats live in their own small structure outside the house. 10 of the domestic cats live in the house with Bussey and Bennett, while another, which behaves like a bobcat, lives in a catio in the garage. The sanctuary gives forever care to domestic cats with an assortment of behavioral issues and medical problems, as well as to bobcats that cannot be returned to the wild or were illegally owned, the rescue says on its website. The sanctuary isn't open to the public. Bussey wants the bobcats to have as little contact with humans as possible. Bussey is the only human being who regularly interacts with the bobcats, and she does it from a distance. She uses tongs to feed them chicken, eggs, rats, and rabbits, all through the chain-link fence. In 2024, it cost about $700 a month to feed the bobcats. Less than 2 years later, that expense has jumped to about $960 per month. At about 35 pounds, the bobcats are a little heavier than their cousins that live in the wild and have to hunt for their meals. They chomp right through the bones. They eat the bones and organs and even the fur. We feed hope prey, Bussy says. The bobcats live in 3 separate chain-link pens and a few steps from the house where Bussy and her husband live with the domestic cats. Because bobcats are skilled climbers and jumpers, the pens are also covered by chain-link fencing. An outer fence runs around the perimeter of the pens. 2 of the bobcats, a male named Dakota and a female named Moxie, share the same pen. Manka and another female named Mimi have their own pens. The project will double the size of Manka's and Mimi's pens. The pen housing Dakota and Moxie was bigger to begin with and will expand by about 1/3. When completed, each pen will be about 860 square feet. Our pen is to nearly double their space to roam and fill their habitats with different terrains, trees, plants, dens, and platforms, the sanctuary says in a fundraising appeal. We will also include a shift area where they can be quarantined for medical care. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, August the 6th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability